It should be recording now.
Yeah, I see the button. Thanks. Yeah, so, but the point is just that you, because what happened last meeting we had, there was Sebastian brought up the question of including other people in the members' meetings. And I basically said something about that I don't know, but generally it's like for members only. But I realized after the meeting that actually what I should have said is that we haven't agreed on that particularly. We didn't have the discussion, and it's something that came up regularly, but it's something that we decide together, like that we kind of figure out what is the best way to do it for us, and there's certain pros and cons for different situations. But we haven't been very active in this decision making, at least in that group, and so yeah, that was my bad, and that's kind of like why I wanted to kind of bring up this topic again, to kind of, because what kind of happens now, we've been running this since basically 4 years, and it's good to kind of like think about why do we have this system, and how can we all improve on it and make it better. Yeah, but that's just the backstory. But maybe let's start with this kind of like, can you all say some words that you associate with decentralization, or what it is? If you have anything, it doesn't matter. It's also sometimes called self-organized.
Passing on some, just, what's the term? When someone who's in charge, you delegate, for example, some delegating some tasks or whatever to other people in the group. So some kind of more, like I'm immediately thinking about decentralizing as a kind of sharing of tasks and sharing of workload with other people.
Yeah, maybe flat instead of filtering down.
So you're saying kind of no hierarchies, or less hierarchies, or something?
No, like no, a leader is maybe wrong, but like there is responsibilities, but there is no leader or a boss.
But maybe it's horizontal.
Horizontal might be the right word for it. Yeah. Rather than vertical, maybe.
Anyone else have something? Sorry.
Self-organizing, and maybe there's like a common goal or something that is shared, which aids instead of kind of a set leader. So people organize themselves or in so kind of cells.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe some kind of, what is it? I mean, actually, the decision don't need to be made by everyone, right? So subgroups can decide for the rest of the group on certain specific topics or so. So there's not, it not necessarily goes to one unifying body or so, where everyone has to be there to decide everything or so.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to start a little bit by talking, but there's always going to be prompts, and then I'm going to go quickly through these things. It's very basic stuff, but just to kind of give a foundation so we can start having a discussion. And I'm going to get into more details, I guess, at a later point, if there's some, this could be like a continued thing. If there's some sessions we don't have any special topics, I could jump in and continue this effort together. But here I just collected 3 misconceptions that I hear a lot. Part of that was also like in your things. One of them is that decentralization means that there is no hierarchy. And the idea is like that hierarchy is a bad thing, or that is the problem. I think it's important to clarify that the hierarchy itself is not inherently bad in any way, but it's like the problem is the use of coercive power, meaning do this or else. But there's many different uses of power, like power with and so on, that are not problematic or challenging in any way, and the hierarchy can be very useful tool, and I think it's something that's part of decentralization also. The other thing that comes up a lot is kind of how can anything work without a leader? So that's a question I get a lot. But the thing is that with decentralization, the idea is that we're all leaders if we choose to be. Like that is a bit more. So what is decentralized is also kind of the management role is not a bottleneck. It's not like one person that is like over a set amount of people that they manage them, but it can be done in a more flexible way depending on which what you're organizing actually. So it's different for each group. And then there's this kind of like inherent hierarchy of like, okay, there's democracy and there's dictatorship, and then there's like, where is decentralization fit into this? Like, what is the perfect system, you know, like for making decisions? And the thing with decentralization, in my understanding, is that it's a system based on change. So the thing is that the system adapts to the needs of the people that are in it, and it's kind of constantly changes, and there's perfect system theoretically in the moment, but the point is not to get there, but it's the point is to kind of improve it slowly and figure out like how can we do things better. And this is saying from Sociocracy 3.0 that comes up a lot. We make decisions, or we build a system that is good enough for now and safe enough to try. So you kind of go into like this kind of understanding that everything changes and updates, and there's kind of flexibility to the thinking of like how do we organize ourselves together. So that's something that I want to have a t-shirt of. It's a really helpful saying to remember often. But yeah, so coming back to the question, for me, decentralization is an educational framework for learning to refuse coercive power on our own terms and in our own time. I'm going to go a little bit into detail what that means, but basically we decided with Virtual Cinema Lab that we're going to try a decentralized approach from the very beginning. So when we founded Virtual Cinema Lab, and it's very special because the whole thing of like having a research group usually looks like this, you know, there's a professor, they're on top, they're the principal investigator, and then they have the postdocs and PhD students that kind of like work for them on the project. And that's how usually also the system is laid out. For some funny quirk, we managed to do like a bottom-up kind of approach, even though like I was a PhD student and Tanya back then was an employee and is a PhD student now as well. But we managed to kind of start this research group and do it in our way and kind of still be an official research group. But there's a lot to learn and improve for us throughout the way. And this is the starting point basically to get everyone in Virtual Cinema Lab, all the members, to kind of be able to participate more and kind of bring up your concerns more readily, and then kind of find out ways how we can change the system to work more efficiently, or come up with things that are then easier and everybody can participate and so on. I'm just going to go a little bit to the foundation, what I understand the basis of decentralization to be. And instead of going to explain what it is, I'm just going to start with the idea of domination cultures, and that idea that we're socialized into this culture of violence, not in a kind of necessarily physical way on a daily basis, but at least kind of the idea of coercive violence, that I have to get a job in order to make money. I have to have an insurance to do. And so there's a lot of kind of things that in our society and we experience every day, kind of like that we have to do or else something happens. The systems are pretty much built on this things, and we've been, all of us, we've been on both ends of this idea. We've been both using this coercive power, and we've been both kind of like on the receiving end of the coercive power many times throughout our lives. And it's violence in this sense is like air, so it's so pervasive, it's so pervasive that we don't notice it anymore. It's like always there. And basically, like I said, like there's different forms of violence, of course, but I'm mostly here talking about systemic violence and the values that are hiding behind kind of like our systems, kind of like how we organize our lives and or how it is organized around us. So things that are discouraging rest or discounting self-care, like kind of the things that kind of help us survive, discounting neurodiversity and so on. But underneath that, basically the whole idea is kind of that we have the idea of right and wrong behavior. So everything that's underlying that is there's punishment and there's reward. So these are kind of like the two approaches that we use in order to get people to behave in a certain way, very simply put. But what happens then is that this is discouraging accountability, you know, because everybody's just looking around their shoulder, you know. It's not really, it's very hard to step forward and take a risk because you're on the hook for it. So there's always this kind of change becomes very hard, you know. There's a kind of like certain resistance or like, let's say, what's this physical thing where you just need more energy to push to get something started, to get change to happen. Anyway, I'm just going to run through this quickly. When you think about non-violence, what comes into your mind? What are some 1 or 2 words that you have?
Actually, I don't know the right word in English, but like kind of bouncy or like soft. I don't want to use the word resilient because it's the wrong, but more like something that describes a surface that gives bouncy, maybe.
Maybe like conflict resolution, like being able to communicate of all the sides and resolve the conflicts non-violently, of course, and to listen all the participants.
For me, it's somehow, I don't know, maybe it sounds a bit cliche, but some kind of diversity and unity. That's what comes to mind. Allowing for autonomy within, I don't know, a group of whatever, at whatever level of complexity. That somehow there's still room for connection, yeah, and yet the autonomy is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somehow you try to avoid these, well, some other pressures to, or put someone into a situation where they're forced to do something because of a certain constellation you create or so, right?
Yeah, thank you. So thanks for these contributions. So usually when we're confronted with coercive power, and let's assume we do not want to submit to it for whatever reason, there's usually like two options left. There is, we can fight or we can flee, or we can like confront or we can like kind of back away, you know, like it doesn't have to be this kind of like, and non-violence, what it gives us is a third way, the third option. Again, this non-violence is more like a thing like non-binary or non-dual, you know, like it's not the opposite of violence, yeah, but it's kind of like a negation of violence. So it's like away from the binary. That's kind of like what the non means in that context, you know. So there is kind of like fighting or fleeing, kind of like that's kind of like the binary of the violence. And then there's the third way is non-violence, and so it is not opposed to violence, and it doesn't exclude physical violence. You know, none of the, even the most well-known non-violent organizers that we all know, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, they all said there is a place and time for violence. It's not that is definitely not, you shouldn't be violent, you know, like that. If you have no other options, please go for it. You know, this is the thing. And also like that it's not opposed to violence, but it's a strategy to expose coercive power and to make it visible and to counteract that particular violence. Okay, so it's not conflict avoidance. Do you have any questions about that, or is it clear so far?
I want to hear about the tools.
The tools, yeah, cool. Yeah, so one tool set that helped me a lot was nonviolent communication, that introduces a framework. It's basically a tool set to kind of get to a more empathetic connection with other people by using language. And it replaces the use of coercive power strategies such as judgments, punishments, and reward by focusing on needs and values. And that I can go into a bit more detail if you're interested later. What does it mean, needs and values? But yeah, I can talk hours about nonviolent communication. I can give an introduction if you want about this as well. At some point, it's helped me a lot. I've been using it since 5 years, but it helped me a lot to get out of this kind of judgmental states. But anyway, so the thing that's important to remember is that so this coercive, the use of coercive power is all around us. So it's hard to even notice it and to notice the persuasiveness. You know, you don't notice that you live in a atmospheric pressure of I don't know how many tons that is of air that are on top of you. You know, it just, there's nothing there. It's just like I'm moving, whatever. But if suddenly there were a vacuum or no, it would be like very strange, indeed. And it takes a while to kind of wean myself off. Like first it takes time to notice it, and second it takes time to like take myself out of that power play, and to heal from the detrimental effects of living in that culture. Again, this is not about a right or wrong way of doing things. So this is just about kind of like healing the nervous system and being more in tune and more effective in collaborating and making use of our collective power in that sense. Yeah, and it's like discouraging. The idea of nonviolence is about discouraging the use of coercive strategies by making them unnecessary, basically. So making them visible, and then with decentralization, we try to like make them unnecessary so that there is no need for this coercive power play anymore, optimally. Okay, so I'm just gonna go quickly through. So that was kind of like just a quick side note about kind of like what is the underlying frame of decentralization. But the actual concept is finding organization structure that constantly evolves and adapts to our needs as the members that are participating in that organization structure. So that thing that I always say, like that really helps to understand this, is a very intuitive way, is that instead of that humans adopt to the system, which we do all the time, you know, there's some bureaucracy I have to do, I have to understand the forms and the stuff like this, and kind of like squeeze my way into like this, whatever format this system happened to be in. It's the other way around. So the system adapts to the need of humans according to how they're changing over time and so on. And I think for me, an important part of this is also that it gives autonomy to the people without turning us into like a cult, or turning us away or isolating us from the rest of the culture. So that's something that's really important for me personally. I don't believe in isolationalism, isolation in the sense that we are all going to go to farm and then make the utopia there, because that's kind of ridiculous. But I'm really kind of like interested in how can we create bubbles inside this existing power structures that, yeah, actually makes other people also able to take parts of that, and or how we do it, and learn from each other. And yeah, the other thing is that it allows us to scale up and scale down according to the needs very efficiently. So it adopts like very well, in my experience, to kind of increasing or decreasing member numbers as long as there is a shared understanding of this changing. So that's really helpful. So if we're going to have a global virtual cinema lab at someday, that's possible. Not that we would need that, but I'm just saying. It's very good at removing bottlenecks and unnecessary bureaucracy. So the point of like, again, you don't necessarily need managers at every level, or but you kind of give more clarity. And it gives the freedom to participants to contribute according to their interests and abilities, so that we kind of figure out what needs to be done, and then maybe if nobody is standing up to do certain things, maybe we don't need to do them. Maybe there's another way to kind of deal with those things. But basically, the whole idea is to have a system that helps us achieve our shared purpose, you know, that is aligned with our core principles and values, and keeps changing, essentially. Any questions so far? You can also interrupt me at any point if there's something comes up. Cool. I'll just continue. We're almost done. There's like 2 more slides, and then we can start talking. So how does it work? Basically, you just start by writing down existing structures and hierarchies, and then coming up with a system that reflects those existing hierarchies. Again, there's an important thing about like different types of power, and a lot of the problems that arise in organizations are because of the hidden power. So what happened, for example, last members meeting was something that since I'm a co-founder of this thing and I've been here with Tanya together the longest, there's a certain power that comes with that, that is not necessarily formalized. You know, there's a certain respect and stuff that goes around with that, so that whenever I blurt something out, then people take it as the law. And so those are not necessarily, those hierarchies are not necessarily bad things. Some people just have more experience, or they're more longer time involved. So if now somebody joins tomorrow and they've never heard about virtual cinema lab or decentralization, they come in and then they want to change everything around. There might be a good thing that people that have been around longer have more power or like that. So again, the important thing is to formalize it, to bring it into some version that is understandable and that is clear and that is written down somewhere that people can access, and that the information is shared. And then we keep changing and adopting these ways of doing things according to whatever comes up. And so the main thing that is really important, what helped me to understand decentralization better, is that every person's feelings or needs are super important to the group. You know, like these things, if you feel uncomfortable in a certain situation, if you have an idea to make something better, we all need to learn to speak up more and bring this in. So feedback is a really like important process for that. And yeah, that I'm also like individually contributing to the good of everyone else and the group in general. And it's not so much about kind of me as a person, or me like that it's about my ego, like how do I get things done and so on. But it can be quite counterintuitive at the beginning, and it took me many years to unlearn, or I'm still unlearning the complacency to this kind of normal power structures. So when something in the structure doesn't work, then usually I think of 100 ways how I can adopt myself to fit with that structure. You know, like for example, with sending out these members reminders to the meetings, I was like, okay, I don't like to do it, and then I was just pushing it away, and then until I realized, no, I need to give this off because I've been doing it too long and I'm not excited about it anymore. So I just tried to find somebody else to do it. Then that's kind of like, it takes me so long to kind of realize that still, and it's like that for, I guess, everyone. Some people are maybe have a natural talent with this, but I don't. Yeah, so I can just simply suggest changes if they come up. So the nice thing about this autonomy part is also that I can join, and I can share tasks, and I can go into different, let's say, groups of responsibilities and so on, according to my current excitement and ability level. So the idea of autonomy is that I don't need to ask for permission, at least not from everybody, but there's kind of like smaller kind of specialized groups that have, and that's the collective autonomy, that people can make decisions for themselves, but people in groups, like if we have a smaller group, like for example, people that organize encounters, this VR conference, is it called encounters? Anyway. Embrace, sorry, yeah. So that they can decide without having to ask everyone in Virtual Cinema Lab, but they can have the mandate to make decisions within their group according to this project for Virtual Cinema Lab, but without asking everyone involved. So then, but because everybody has individual autonomy to join any group freely or leave any group according to ability level, this also like this collective autonomy and individual autonomy like really support each other in a very synergistic way. And yeah, it gives me personally a lot of freedom and flexibility to do what feels good in the moment, and follow this excitement. Like if I want to do a workshop, if I want to do a thing, I can like start a project and I can follow through with it, and I can find other people. So that's how it's supposed to work in theory, at least. Yeah, so that you have many different task groups that kind of like organize themselves according to what the needs are. And then we said about the mandate that it's like that groups in themselves can make consensus based. There doesn't have to be voting, but they can make, okay, there can be like a small group that is like embrace, and then they kind of decide this certain thing together, like the venue is going to happen here and it's going to cost this much and blah blah, and that's still like a collective decision because people can join theoretically, even if they might not have the resources or the time for it. But it's a small group of people that are basically making decisions what is good for everyone in the entire group. Just quickly, the requirements for this system to work is we need transparency. That's where we have the handbook. So the ideas need to be written down, and we need to know and understand what the existing decisions and agreements are. And this needs to be updated, and people, it needs to be useful for people. We need to have a shared purpose, which is our mission statement here that we wrote at the beginning. We need psychological safety. We need reliable conflict resolutions, which also means a feedback system that we are able to have regular reflections on what's going on. We haven't been super tippy-toppy on all of those, so that's why also it's good to kind of bring this up, this topic. And the last thing I wanted to introduce you to, basically because all of this, what I said before about the requirements, what it needs is a lot of trust for this to work. And trust takes time and effort to build. And it's part of a collecting healing process as well. So that's why I kind of highly recommend this nonviolent communication, because it helps a lot kind of distancing ourselves from other people's emotions and their needs a bit, seeing those things more clearly. But one thing that really helped me was this Brené Brown's research on the 7 elements of trust. I'm just going to go through them quickly, but this was really like a powerful thing that helped me to understand, like, okay, if there's a trust issue, it was usually just like this thing like, okay, there's no trust, so I don't know what to do. With Braving, I was able to actually look at kind of like what's the underlying sources, why is there no trust? And then go into it and say like, okay, it's this. So 7 elements. B for boundaries. So basically you respect my boundaries, and when you're not clear about what's okay and not okay, then you're asked, and you're willing to say no also, like when you don't want to do something. Because if I ask somebody, for example, to do thing X, then I want to be sure that they also are able to say no to that, so that I can ask. It makes it safer to ask. Reliability is a big one for me. I'm still learning to yeah, this comes up a lot in my life. You do what you'll say you do at work. This means staying aware of your competencies and limitations so that you don't overpromise and are able to deliver commitments and balance competing priorities. Accountability. This means a lot kind of listening before explaining your own side or defending yourself. So just kind of if there's any kind of conflict or situation, that there's kind of like asking a lot of questions before kind of reacting or explaining your own side, so, or defending yourself or stuff like that. Vault means basically not sharing informations or experiences that are not yours to share. So kind of like if somebody has a check-in or something like this, I'm doing like this and that, there shouldn't be like this much of gossip going around. Integrity basically means choosing courage over comfort. choosing what is right over what is fun or fast or easy. Like basically practicing your values instead of just simply like kind of swearing to them. Non-judgment basically means this idea of that I'm able to ask for things without being ridiculed, and that you can ask for things and what you need, and we can talk about how we feel without judgment. And then the generosity is quite important for me. It's also like kind of this, that extending the most generous interpretation possible to the intentions, words, and actions of others. So not kind of like going like, oh, this person did this because blah blah, but just like, okay, what's the most generous explanation of this kind of behavior? Of course, this can be tricky, like when it comes to so there needs to be this collective psychological safety and things to deal with abusive and toxic people then, but this was a very helpful thing for me to kind of point out, like, okay, I don't trust this person, why? And then I'm like, okay, it's reliability again. So that's kind of like the thing. Okay, that's basically it. So if there's anything else you want to talk about, guess we can take still 10 minutes or something.
I have
Or if
one
you have
question
questions, of
just
course.
for everybody. Like, shall I still keep recording the discussion or no?
I don't know. I would almost prefer not to be recorded for the discussion. I
Okay,
don't know how others feel.
cool. Yeah, but then let's stop here and then we can share this. I think this is already good. And then